Okay, today we're going to be talking about rational exponents and using rational exponents to simplify expressions. The first thing we have to remember is that a rational exponent is an exponent that is a fraction. Just like here we have an exponent of 1/3. Now we want to remember is all this means is what is the third root of 125. And the third root of 125 is 5, because if I multiply 5 out 3 times, I get 125. Now here my denominator is 4 in my exponent. So I have the fourth root of 16. Now what multiplied 4 times gives me 16? 2. Okay, now for number 3, I have a rational exponent of 1/3, which is going to mean the third root of 216. Now we want to notice that this 2 is outside the parentheses. We're going to follow the order of operations, which is exponents before multiplication. What multiplied 3 times gives you 216? 6. And then 2 times 6 is 12. Alright, same thing for number 4. We have a 1/3 exponent. Exponents before multiplication. So the third root of 64 is 4, because 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. And then 3 times 4 is 12. Alright, now with number 5, we have a negative sign. We want to remember that that means we really have 1 over 64 to the 1/3, or 1 over the third root of 64. And just like in number 4, the third root of 64 is 4, so it's 1/4 as our final answer. We want to remember that this negative sign, it doesn't tell us that the number is negative because it's in the exponent. It just tells us that the number is supposed to be in the denominator. Now over here we have another negative exponent, but before we apply this exponent of negative 26, we want to be smart in 2 ways. First off, we want to remember that negative 6 over 3 is just a trick, that's just negative 2. And when we multiply like bases, our bases are 9 and 9, when we multiply like bases, we are going to add the exponents of 3 and negative 2, and 3 plus negative 2 is just 1. So our answer is just 9. Now number 27 is number 7 is already a fraction. 64 over 9, or 36 over 9. It has a negative exponent. So what we really have is not the square root of 36 over 49, but the square root of 49 over 36. The negative exponent tells us to flip the fraction, and the square root of 49 is 7, and the square root of 36 is 6. Number 8, we have an exponent of 1.5. Now, we're going to rewrite that as a fraction because 1.5 is a rational number, and we're going to think about that as the square, as 25 to the 3/2. Now, we always want to ask ourselves, what exponent are we going to apply first, the 3 or the 1/2? We are always going to apply the denominator first. So we're going to think about this as 25 to the 1/2 cubed. If we try to cube the 25 and then take the square root, the numbers are going to get very large. We don't want to deal with large numbers. So we have the square root of 25 to the third. Well, the square root of 25 is just 5. And then 5 cubed is 125 is our final answer. Now, number 9 is kind of like number 6. We have multiplication. The difference here is we do not have like bases. Because we do not have like bases, we are not going to add the exponents. Number 6, we could add the exponents because we had like bases. Here we are going to evaluate the square root of 81, and, well, 100 to the negative 1/2 is 1 over the square root of 100. The square root of 81 is 9. And the square root of 100 is 10. So our answer is 9/10. Okay. Number 10, we are not going to just take the square root of 2 because nothing exciting happens. The square root of 2 is just the square root of 2. What we are going to do is we are going to apply our exponent laws and multiply 1/2 and 4/3. And when we multiply 1/2 times 4/3, we get 2/3. Well, I can't take the cube root of 2, so even though I'd rather do the denominator first, I really can't here because 2 is not a perfect cube. So instead what I'm going to do is apply the numerator power first, and then the cube root. So it's just going to be the cube root of 4. That doesn't reduce, and that is going to be my final answer because the direction said do not leave any rational exponent. So I don't want to leave this as 4 to the 1/3, and I definitely don't want to leave it as 2 to the 2/3. The cube root of 4 is the final answer and the only acceptable one because the directions say do not leave any rational exponents. Now, again, I have to make a decision for number 11, the 4 first or the 3 first. I'm going to go with the 3 first because the cube root of 8 is 2. And then 2 to the 4th is 16. Number 12, I want you to notice there's a negative, but there's no parentheses around the 36. So what I'm just going to do, this negative is just going to kind of hang out, and I'm going to ignore it until the very end of my problem. I have 36 to the 3/2. I really don't want to cube the 36 because this 2 tells me that it's just the square root of 36, which I know is 6. So, and then 6 cubed is 216. Now I'm going to put the negative in, and my final answer is negative 216. Number 13 is written differently than number 12. The negative is inside the parentheses. I can take the cube root of a negative number because 3 negative numbers do multiply to a negative. What number multiplied 3 times gives you negative 64? Negative 4. Now again, this negative, just like we talked about before, does not mean we have a negative number. It means we have 1 over the 4th root of 16, which is just 1/2. And the last two problems in this section, again, we have another negative exponent. So we've got 1 over 25 to the 3/2. We want to think to ourselves, what's better, the 3 or the 2? What do I want to do first, cube or square root? I definitely want a square root first because I know that the square root of 25 is 5. And I'm going to cube that, and my final answer is going to be 1 over 125. Number 16, I've got like bases again, so I'm going to deal with the exponents, and I'm going to add them. 2/3 plus 4/3 is 6/3. Hey, guess what? That's just 2. So my final answer is 25.